My brother said I'd never amount to anything. 10 years later, he applied for a job at my company. I still remember the exact moment my brother Derek shattered what was left of my confidence. It was Thanksgiving 2014, and I was sitting at our parents' dining table in their modest split-level house in Columbus, Ohio, picking at Mom's famous green bean casserole. I'd just announced I was dropping out of Ohio State to start my own digital marketing agency. Derek had been working at Procter & Gamble for 3 years by then, driving his BMW 3 Series and wearing tailored suits that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He set down his fork, looked me dead in the eye, and laughed, not a chuckle, but a full, condescending laugh that made everyone at the table go silent. "Sam, be realistic," he said, wiping his mouth with a cloth napkin. "You barely passed high school algebra. You think you're going to run a business? You're going to fail within 6 months, crawl back here, and beg Dad to get you a job at his auto shop." Mom tried to intervene, but Derek wasn't finished. "I'm serious. You've never finished anything you started. Remember piano lessons? Soccer? That community college photography class? You're a quitter, Samantha. You always have been, and you always will be. You'll never amount to anything." The turkey I'd swallowed felt like concrete in my stomach. My dad wouldn't look at me. My younger sister Emma was staring at her plate. Derek's wife Amanda gave me this pitying smile that somehow hurt worse than his words. I stood up, grabbed my jacket from the coat rack in the hallway, and walked out. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't cry until I was in my beat-up 2003 Honda Civic, parked outside a closed Walmart 3 miles down the road, hyperventilating so hard I thought I might pass out. Here's what Derek didn't know. I'd already signed my first client the week before, a local CrossFit gym that needed help with their social media. They were paying me $800 a month. It wasn't much, but it was something. It was mine. I wiped my face, started the car, and made myself a promise. One day, Derek would eat those words. Every single one of them. I just had no idea it would happen the way it did. The first year was brutal. I was living in a studio apartment above a Chinese restaurant in the Short North District, and the smell of Kung Pao chicken was permanently embedded in my clothes. My office was a folding table from Target and a laptop I'd bought refurbished on eBay for $300. I worked 18-hour days. I'd wake up at 5 in the morning to respond to emails, then spend my days cold calling businesses from a list I'd compiled from the Yellow Pages. Yes, the actual printed Yellow Pages. At night, I taught myself graphic design through YouTube tutorials and practiced writing advertising copy until my eyes burned. My diet consisted of ramen noodles, peanut butter sandwiches, and whatever free food I could score at networking events. I went to every Chamber of Commerce meeting, every small business mixer, every startup weekend. I shook hands until my palm hurt. I smiled until my face ached. Derek didn't call. Not once. Neither did Dad. Emma texted me occasionally, just to check in, she said, but I could tell she'd been told not to talk about my little business venture at family dinners. But slowly, painfully, things started clicking. The CrossFit gym referred me to their nutritionist friend. The nutritionist introduced me to a real estate agent. The real estate agent connected me with a dentist opening a new practice. By month 18, I had 12 clients and was pulling in almost $6,000 a month. It wasn't a fortune, but I could afford actual groceries and rent. By year 3, I had to hire my first employee, a recent graduate named Kayla who was smarter than I'd been at her age. By year 5, we'd moved into a real office space in the Arena District, complete with a conference room and a coffee machine that didn't leak. I didn't go home for Thanksgiving anymore. Or Christmas. Mom would call and leave voicemails saying how much they missed me, but she never addressed what Derek had said. No one ever did. It was like that dinner never happened, except it played on a loop in my head every single day. That memory became my fuel. Every rejection, every late payment, every client who ghosted me, I thought about Derek's face and worked harder. The breakthrough came in 2019 when a mid-sized tech company called CoreLogic Solutions approached us. They'd seen a campaign we'd run for a local brewery that went semi-viral. Nothing crazy, just 40,000 views on Instagram, but it caught the right person's attention. CoreLogic wanted a complete rebrand, new website, social media strategy, content marketing, the works. The contract was worth $200,000. I read the email 3 times before I believed it was real. Then I called Kayla into my office and we both screamed like we'd won the lottery. That contract changed everything. CoreLogic was thrilled with our work, and they introduced us to 3 other companies in their network. By the end of 2020, despite the pandemic nearly destroying half the businesses in America, we'd somehow grown. We'd gone fully remote before it was mandatory, and companies suddenly needed digital marketing more than ever. I hired a proper team, account managers, content creators, a graphic designer who'd worked for an agency in Chicago, even a data analyst. We moved into a bigger office in Grandview Heights with exposed brick walls and standing desks and one of those fancy water machines that gives you sparkling or still. By 2022, Meridian Digital, I'd named it after the street where I'd lived in that studio apartment, had 37 employees and revenue of $3.2 million. We'd won awards. I'd been interviewed in Columbus Business First and spoke at a conference in Cleveland about entrepreneurship. I still hadn't spoken to Derek. I'd see posts on Mom's Facebook, his promotions at P&G, his new Audi, photos of his vacations in Aruba and Napa Valley. He looked successful. Happy. Like someone who'd never told his sister she was worthless. I told myself I didn't care. That I'd moved on. That his opinion didn't matter anymore. But late at night, when I was alone in my condo in German Village, the one with the original hardwood floors and the kitchen island I'd dreamed about, I'd still hear his voice. You'll never amount to anything. It was a Tuesday morning in March 2024 when my HR director, Patricia, knocked on my office door. She had this weird expression on her face, somewhere between amused and uncomfortable. "Sam, I need you to look at something," she said, setting her laptop on my desk. "We got an application for the senior marketing director position. I think you should see this one personally." I was confused. Patricia handled all the hiring. I only got involved in final interviews for executive positions. But I leaned forward and looked at the screen. The name hit me like a physical blow. Derek Mitchell. My Derek. My brother. There was his professional headshot, older now, a little grey at his temples, but unmistakably him. The same condescending smirk, just frozen in corporate photoshoot format. My hand started shaking. I scrolled through his resume. He'd left Procter & Gamble 8 months ago. Since then, he'd been consulting independently, which usually meant unemployed. Before that, his LinkedIn showed a series of lateral moves, never quite making it to the executive level he'd clearly expected. He was applying to work for me. At the company he'd mocked. The company that wouldn't exist if I'd listened to him. Does he know? I asked Patricia, my voice barely above a whisper. Does he know I own this company? She shook her head. The job posting just lists Meridian Digital. Your name's not on it. Most applicants don't research the CEO until after they're interested. I sat back in my chair, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to reject him immediately, to write "not qualified" across his application in red digital ink. But another part of me, the part that had spent 10 years building this company brick by brick, wanted something else. I wanted him to know. I wanted him to sit across from me in an interview. I wanted to watch his face when he realized who he was asking for a job. Schedule him for a first-round interview, I said quietly. With me. Patricia's eyebrows shot up. Are you sure? I smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. I'm absolutely sure. We scheduled Derek's interview for the following Thursday at 2 o'clock. I barely slept for 3 days. I changed my outfit 4 times that morning before settling on a navy blue pantsuit. Professional, powerful, nothing like the girl in the stained Ohio State hoodie who'd walked out of Thanksgiving dinner a decade ago. I had Patricia set up the interview in our main conference room, the one with the glass walls overlooking the entire office. I wanted him to see everything we'd built. I wanted him to understand exactly how wrong he'd been. At 1:55 p.m., Patricia texted me, "He's here." I waited 5 minutes. Let him sit. Let him wonder. Then I gathered the folder I'd prepared, his resume, his cover letter, and printouts of his last 3 LinkedIn posts about leadership and innovation, and walked down the hallway. Through the glass wall, I could see him sitting at the conference table, checking his phone. He was wearing a grey suit that looked expensive, and his hair was styled perfectly. He looked confident. Comfortable. Like someone who expected to be offered the job. I opened the door. Derek looked up, already extending his hand and arranging his face into that corporate-friendly smile. It took him approximately 2 seconds to recognize me. I watched the exact moment it happened. His eyes widened, his smile froze, and all the color drained from his face. "Hello, Derek," I said, extending my hand. I'm Samantha Mitchell, CEO and founder of Meridian Digital. Thank you for applying. He stared at my hand like it might bite him. The silence stretched for 5 excruciating seconds before he finally shook it. His palm was sweaty. Sam, he said, his voice cracking slightly. I didn't realize that I owned this company. I finished, sitting down across from him and opening his folder. Clearly not. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't have applied, would you? He tried to laugh, but it came out strangled. Wow. This is your company. I mean, I knew you'd started something, but I didn't know it was this successful. I offered, meeting his eyes. Legitimate? Real? His face went red. Good. I let the silence hang there for a moment, watching Derek squirm in his chair like a kid called to the principal's office. Part of me felt powerful. Another part felt sad, not for him, but for the version of me that had believed his cruel words all those years ago. So, I said, glancing down at his resume. It says here you left P&G last August. Can you tell me about that decision? Derek cleared his throat. It was a mutual separation. The company was restructuring, and my position was eliminated. They offered me a lateral move, but I felt it was time to explore other opportunities. Translation: he got demoted or fired. I'd learned to read corporate speak fluently over the years. And these consulting opportunities for the past 8 months, any major clients? His jaw tightened. A few smaller projects. Nothing I can discuss due to confidentiality agreements. Translation: nothing. No clients. No income. Probably burning through savings and sending applications to every company in Ohio. I leaned back in my chair. Derek, I'm going to be honest with you. Your resume is solid. You have good experience. Under normal circumstances, you'd probably make it to a second-round interview. I watched hope flicker across his face. But these aren't normal circumstances, I continued. Because 10 years ago, you told me I'd never amount to anything. You said I was a quitter who would fail within 6 months. You laughed at me in front of our entire family and told me I should work at Dad's auto shop because I wasn't smart enough for anything else. Derek's face went from red to white. Sam, I was young and stupid, and You were 26, I interrupted. The same age I was when I signed my first $1 million contract. Old enough to know that words have consequences. He tried to speak, but I held up my hand. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to pass on your application. Not because you're unqualified, like I said, your experience is solid. But because I built this company from nothing specifically to prove people like you wrong. And I'm not interested in hiring someone who thought I was too stupid to succeed. Derek's hands were shaking now. Please, Sam. I need this job. Amanda and we're going through a divorce, and I've got mortgage payments, and nobody's hiring right now. Then you should have been kinder 10 years ago. I stood up, signaling the interview was over. Derek remained seated, looking up at me with something I'd never seen from him before, genuine fear. Not fear of me, exactly, but fear of his circumstances. Fear of what his life had become. For a moment, just a brief moment, I felt sorry for him. This wasn't how I'd imagined this moment during all those late nights in my studio apartment. I'd pictured triumph, vindication, sweet revenge. But standing there, looking at my older brother reduced to begging for a job from the sister he'd belittled, I just felt tired. I'm not going to offer you the position, I said quietly, but I'm also not going to blacklist you from the industry. What you did was cruel, but I'm not interested in being cruel back. I'm interested in running a good company with good people. Derek finally stood, his eyes wet. I'm sorry, Sam. I'm so sorry. I was jealous of you, I always have been. You had this creativity and courage that I never had, and instead of supporting you, I tried to tear you down. I've regretted that dinner every day for 10 years. I wanted to believe him. Part of me did. But words are easy. They were easy when he destroyed me, and they were easy now that he needed something from me. I appreciate the apology, I said, walking to the door and opening it. I really do. But I think we both need to move forward separately. As Derek walked past me toward the elevator, I added one more thing. For what it's worth, I hope you find something. Just maybe at a company where the CEO doesn't remember you telling her she was worthless. He nodded without turning around, stepped into the elevator, and disappeared. I walked back to my office, closed the door, and sat down at my desk. Through my window, I could see the Columbus skyline, the city where I'd built something real from nothing but spite and determination and those endless ramen-fueled nights. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Emma told me Derek interviewed at your company. I hope you two can talk things out. Family is important. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, some things can't be talked out, Mom. But I'm okay. Actually, I'm more than okay. And for the first time in 10 years, I actually meant it. Derek's words had haunted me, driven me, shaped me. But sitting there in my corner office, leading a company with 37 employees who respected me, I realized something important. I didn't need Derek to acknowledge my success. I didn't need an apology from him or validation from my family. I'd already proved everything I needed to prove, to myself. 3 months later, I heard through Emma that Derek had found a job at a smaller firm in Cincinnati. Good for him, I thought, and genuinely meant it. His opinion of me, positive or negative, no longer mattered. Because I'd amounted to something. Not for him, not to spite him, but because I'd refused to let anyone else define what I was capable of becoming. And that, I realized, was the real victory all along.